All right, the next foot is a fringe foot, and this is I think it's a relatively new foot that the machine manufacturers have come out with. And the key to the fringe foot is this blade that runs down the center of the foot. And what's going to happen is we're going to stitch loops over this blade and then feed the loops off through the back of the foot, and then we'll go in and we can clip the loops and make fringe. I brought along a couple of examples to show you. On this block, I used the fringe foot to make the center of this flower. I used 2 spools of thread and fed them through the needle simultaneously in order to get a thicker fringe. And then here's an example of a baby quilt where I wanted to have a patch of grass that a baby could touch and feel and have a dimension to it. So I used the fringe foot to make that. You can make a fringe that would go in a straight line or in circles like I've done here. Alright, so let's go over to the machine and I'll demonstrate to you how to use the fringe foot. Okay, so I'm going to take the foot, and again I'm just going to snap it onto my machine. And then since the key to the fringe is to go back and forth, I'm going to have to set my machine onto a satin type stitch and make a couple of adjustments. I'm going to choose a satin type stitch, and then I'm going to need to make it narrower. So in this case I'm going to narrow it down to about 1.5, and then I need to make it dense. The denser it is, the better the fringe will look. So from 1 I'm going to go down to about 0.4. And then on some machines you'll need to back off your tension. My machine has a thread metering device built in, which really functions as a tension setting, and so I'm going to back that off to about half of what the default is, and you would do the same thing if you were adjusting the tension on your machine. Okay, then what I discovered works well is to just use 2 spools of thread with, and that way you're putting down the double amount of thread at the same time, instead of having to go back over it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a yellow thread and a white thread, and I'm just going to load them through my machine together just like it was one single piece of thread. And if that doesn't work for you, you can just do them separately. Get through here. Okay. Alright, and I'm going to take the thread tails and pull them to the back. Maybe. Come to the back out of my way. Let's do it that way. Okay, now I've got a piece of fabric and a piece of stabilizer, and the reason I've got the stabilizer is really 2 reasons: to give me something to hold on to and to give a little bit more body to the fabric. It's just a tearaway stabilizer, kind of a nice crispy tearaway stabilizer, and I'll show you how I would go about making the circle like the center of the flower. I'm going to start at the outer. If I wanted my circle to be fairly big or fairly small, I'm going to start at the outer edge where that circle would be, and you can see how the needle is going back and forth over that blade. Sometimes I found that I kind of need to tug it just a little bit to get started, because that loop of that fabric has to feed off of that blade from the back. Okay, and then I'm going to just start my circle. So I want to get really close to the other piece of the first row of stitching. Since the foot is transparent, I can see right through it. I'm just pressing it down. Continuing to go in a circle. Going until you get it as tight as you want, and then do not use your auto cutter to cut your thread if your machine has that, because it won't work with this. It'll break your needle. So I'm going to raise it up. I'm going to tug and pull those loops completely off the blade of the foot. Turn that loose here. Okay, I was in a class recently. The lady did this, and she liked it so much she didn't even want to trim the loops. She was making the center of a flower. So then what I would do is to take my little small scissors and just run them along the inside part of the loop. And cut the fringe. Now some people like to put fray stop on the back as a added measure, just to be sure that they don't get any kind of thread that pulls loose. I can tell you I've done quite a few of these and I've never felt it necessary to do so, but if you want to run fray check on the back of this, you can. Let me see. Just keep clipping here for a second. Go out of order here a little bit. And check for any places where you missed, like I did. Okay. And there you go. Perfect little, in this case, center for a flower. I would then just cut this off, cut it out, make it a freestanding piece, and then you can stitch it on to the place where you want it stitched. I actually think it's smarter to, if you're going to do this, to do it like I have, as a freestanding piece, and then kind of applique it into your center of your flower, or whatever application you're using, whatever you're trying to do, as opposed to being really brave and stitching it right onto your block. In case you make a mistake here, you can just toss this out and do another one. So that's the fringe foot.